that we had a very, very strong message that life was altered through no fault of their own for care experienced people, and that these are really special people who have got an enormous amount to offer the world, partly because they've had to make sense of the world in a different sense. And I love the way in which Lem Sissay describes that through his poetry, and the examples he uses to demonstrate the unique perspective on the world that care experience people have got, a unique perspective which could add so much more to our society, businesses, family life, the world. And yet the outcomes for this group of people, without rehearsing them, should mean that this is the civil rights issue of our time, the disadvantage faced by that community. And it's a community that is tens of thousands strong, often not getting public visibility and not with a strong campaigning movement behind it, which is why calls and conversations like this and congregations like this are so important. So it felt natural at the end of the review process to conclude that one of the things that would be needed, a change that should happen, is that the care experience should become a legally protected characteristic. Now, I believe that any argument for any particular characteristic to acquire that status at any point in history when it is argued for initially meets resistance or skepticism or doubt. And I know that because I myself had some doubt when a group of care experienced people came to me and argued that that should be one of the recommendations of the review. And I was persuaded of its merits before putting it into the final report. And I think one of the things that holds people back is not knowing that this group should be a visible community in the world, in the respect of other protected characteristics having that status. But that needs to change, and that's one of the reasons why I think the protected characteristics would make such a big difference. One of the things to say is that it is a necessary but not sufficient change. So introducing a protected characteristic in and of itself isn't sufficient to address the disadvantage faced by the care experience community. And I don't think anyone advocating for that believes that it is a sufficient change, but it is necessary. And it's necessary because it's a meaningful legal mechanism. It's a meaningful legal tool that puts teeth behind a number of the other recommendations that the review has made, and behind a number of practices which local authorities as corporate parents and other public bodies should be pursuing. So, for example, the review recommended the expansion of corporate parenting beyond local authorities to basically all public bodies. Making the care experience protected characteristics would provide much greater authority for employers, for businesses, and for policymakers to put in place policies and programs which better promote outcomes for care experienced people. And there are a number of areas, and I can draw on examples where people in those positions of power doubt whether they can do what they'd like to do to support care experienced people because they don't know whether they've got the legal footing to do so. So it would provide a powerful legal mechanism, a positive one and also a protective one, because there are examples where the care experience community are discriminated against or treated differently because of their background, and the ability to acquire the data to prove that, to report on it, for organizations to have to think about those things, they all matter. And the second reason is because this is the second reason why it's necessary but not sufficient, but is very, very necessary, is that it is also a powerful signal of a shift in societal attitudes that would bring the care experience population into much clearer public view. The lack of awareness of the experience of, for example, young parents who are care experienced and the way in which they need to navigate and interact the care system themselves, or the children's social care system themselves, I think would shock a lot of the members of the public. The experience of renters, young renters who've grown up in the care system, and who they might need as a guarantor, all the extra things that need to be navigated. A protected characteristic would make those in that instance, landlords or other organizations think quite hard about how they're setting themselves up so that they make a good adjustment for people who've got a care experience. Planning applications for people wishing to set up children's homes. There are lots of examples where we need to turn on the spotlight for the experience that's being faced by those who've grown up in care, and to make it very, very clear that it is unacceptable in law and that this group is special. They've got something unique that the country needs, and that the law should reflect that in a way that supports employers, public services, organisations, so that we can help this group to flourish, and so that we can have an ambition as a country to be the best place to grow up for children, but specifically for children who haven't been able to grow up in their birth family, their original tribe. And actually, we've been able to build a new tribe, a new network, new families for these young people to fly and succeed and have every opportunity that every other young person can have later on in life. Now, these sorts of efforts, it's fine writing a report, but someone's got to do something with it. And it's why I love working with Terry, because he's someone that does stuff, doesn't just say stuff. And so it's been really humbling to watch Terry, following the review, run with this and engage so many of you on this call into this movement, which is about giving a different status to young people in care and those who've got a care experience in the UK, not just in England, because I know a number of you from Scotland and Wales. And that is down to Terry's absolute tenacity. He doesn't let it drop. And I'm very, very grateful that he's got those qualities, and I hope he never changes. And on that note, I'll hand over to Terry.